Hello, everyone. It's been a while since you heard from me. I have been thinking about doing this video pretty much since I got back to Ashland, and I just haven't had the mental capacity to do it. Um, a lot has changed for me in the past year. As far as like how I think about van life and what I would want for myself for the future. And one of those big things is I would like a home. Um, in 2018, I had no other recourse but to turn to living out of my car. And that was when I started this YouTube channel. And it was more to have a communication about it than to become a YouTuber. As I've said over and over again, I didn't know being a YouTuber was a thing. So it wasn't something I set out to become. It wasn't something I set out to turn into a business. But then the pandemic hit. And so like I was doing videos all the time. Like a lot of other people, I just focused my energy where I could at a time where I didn't know where my next job was coming from, or if I would have another job, or like if theater would even make it back when we were talking about something that was passed by human contact, and we had much less information on it then. So really, 2020 was this mixed moment because I did most of the traveling I've ever done in my van life during the pandemic because I was home in a thing that had wheels. I feel like there's like a 4 to 5 year burnout on van life for most people. Now, mind you, there's some people who do it way longer, but I have seen the trend even before I came to this decision. I have seen the trend of the 4 to 5 year burnout. And what I find is as people start to burn out, they start to really focus on the negative things about van life. And van life is like any other thing in this universe. It has good things and it has bad things. And I don't want to be one of those people who be like, oh, here are all the terrible things that'll make me reconsider my decision. I'm just at a point where I really want a place to be still, to be safe. Again, I have worked normal jobs for most of my van life. There were some exceptions during the pandemic where I was mostly doing the YouTube thing because it was bringing in money. It was something I enjoyed doing. And it was something I'd already started that I just started to build up. Once I started getting back into getting theater jobs, which is what I really wanted to do, all that started falling off. And the thing is, to be able to work, I have to go where the work is. So I can't choose to go to Arizona in a certain season when it's ideal, or to avoid a certain area because of temperatures when it's ideal, because that was never what got me here anyway. I was always a person who had a job but wasn't making enough money to have housing, and my work was so on and off. There wasn't this job security. So the thing about owning a vehicle is I knew I always owned it. So when things dipped, I still had my vehicle. When things went up, I had my vehicle. And so I invested a lot of money in making my vehicle life better or for worse. I made the choices I thought were right at the time I thought they were right. I've gone up and down in tackling my debts. When I didn't have a lot of work, sometimes I had to lean back on credit cards, which took the credit cards back up. And then when I had work, I took credit cards back down, and that's been in a cycle loop. So between that and even the investment I made in this box truck, I haven't been able to put away a lot of money. So I can't move into standard housing tomorrow. I'm not saying I found a house, I'm about to move in, I found an apartment. I don't even know if I want to be in an apartment. I don't know where this is going, but I kind of know for me, in a mental sense, I'm ready to move on from van life. And I don't know that I have anything else to say in a video on the dawn of van life, because it feels like the beginning is over, and I'm at the end and I'm looking for the next thing. And another thing is, when I came back to Ashland specifically, it felt like coming home. And I haven't had that. There was no place that felt, even when I went back to Baltimore, it felt kind of weird and awkward and still like not the place I belonged anymore. And I feel more like I belong here. So like that makes my options basically Ashland and Medford. Unfortunately, Eugene is way too far away. What I would love is like actual housing here. For what it's worth, it's kind of hot in here, but I wanted to shoot it in here. The company housing I'm staying in is actually right behind me. But I didn't want to deal with the cats jumping in it. I know you guys love the cats, but I just needed to get this out without dealing with the cats. So I'm sitting in a very hot cab right now. Of course, everything's shut down and I'm living out of the apartment right now, the apartment behind me. And maybe, I don't know, this has been coming for a long time. Even the last couple videos I put out, they weren't really about the lifestyle anymore. And I think that's okay. I did what I set out to do with this channel, which was I was in a particularly compromised situation. I wanted to share information on how I was handling it and show that there is an in-between. So there is, you know, a van life that's not the fancy schmancy, I have all the free time in the world to travel all over the place van life. And there's also a place in between that's not the I'm suffering on a corner, you know, in terrible conditions. And that doesn't mean like everything went up and down. There were times I was like kind of sailing. And then there were times where I was like, I am so afraid of this vehicle breaking down. I was going to say truck, but it's not just the truck. It was the truck. It was the Chevy van. It was the minivan. There were times where I knew my funds were so low that if nothing happened, I would get through the next month. But if something happened, if absolutely anything happened, expected, unexpected, that Toyota Sienna, when I had it, was the most loyal vehicle I ever owned. Gave me very little problems, but I still lived with this fear that if anything happened, I lost everything. And I knew, just like I know right now, right today, I can't flip myself into an apartment that I own, you know, in the next 24 hours or the next week, and maybe not the next month. Like, I don't know how long this process is going to take. I just know my focus has shifted from better van life, which I feel like I accomplished. Like, I went from living in a car to living in something that has a semi-studio-esque space, and I have 2 pets now. And I went from like living in a car to this, which doesn't look that impressive in this video because I'm just sitting in the cab and not in the built-out space. But there are other videos that show you what the built-out space looks like, so I'm worried about it. Is it the fanciest thing ever? No. But it's also not a car with a window busted out, which is where I began. I am not crying, guys. I am sweating. It is so hot. So I guess I should wrap this up, but I feel like if I don't do this video now, and if I keep thinking about how to do it and how to do it the right way, I'm never going to get it done. I did put a statement on my Patreon and on my community page for my patrons and members first, so they kind of knew this was coming. And yeah. By the way, guys, I do need bifocals. I went to see an optometrist the other day. I had to pay out of pocket for it. So I do have some bifocals coming out. And all the lady kept saying was like, welcome to your 40s. So I wasn't crazy. I knew I was getting to that point. And that's another thing. Like, my eyesight isn't what it used to be. I still don't like driving at night because of my eyesight. Like, I was at a gathering for a stage manager who was leaving this past Sunday, and I was so panicked and I drove the truck to the venue. So I have this large vehicle that I have to park, and right now I'm in an alley space. And I was so panicked about like getting back and parked before nightfall. And so at the same token, it's like if I'm somewhere at night and it's dark, the idea of waking up and having to move the truck in the dark scares me, even with my lights on and all that other stuff, and the cameras and everything I have to assist me. I am still nervous about driving and navigating the truck at night. Also, Felix is not doing great with the traveling around. Mickey doesn't care. If he's living in the truck and I move him into like 3 or 4 apartments, he's like, whatever, this is normal life. I'm talking about the company management apartments, that the employee housing I need to get to stay in when we get it occasionally. Like, Mickey's chill. He's like, whatever. Felix is like traumatized every time I move him to a new setting. So he's a very different animal. Like, doors open and he gets afraid and he runs the other way. He's not even interested in the outside world. And he's been like that since he was little. So I think like it's just him. He's just a scaredy cat. And so it'd be nice to be settled someplace where we are most of the time. I'm not saying I'll never take a job again that's far away. And I always want to have a camper van. Like, I would love that to stay a part of my life. There are so many enriching experiences I've had because I have a camper van. There are things I would not have done or been able to do if I did not have this camper van. So, excuse me a second. All the sweat. Ugh. So yeah, it's not something I want to ever not have. I don't know that I want something as big as this. I want something a little bit more manageable, something that navigates city streets a little bit easier. I definitely want to downsize at some point, but for the foreseeable future, the first goal is to get some kind of standard housing where hopefully I can park this. I actually can't take it if I can't park this. And then at some point, downsize from this into something like a little more standard size that I could still use to go out camping, that I could still use to go out traveling. But I can't think about that until I've worked consistently enough to have a nest egg for that. And that's what I want. I want to be able to go on vacation in a camper van. I don't want to live in one full time anymore. And I'm not going to be one of those people who makes a video like, oh, here are the terrible things they didn't tell you about van life. So I can excuse the fact that I'm feeling frustrated with it. You're going to feel frustrated with van life. It has all these special little quirks and things that you have to get used to that are not a part of living in the house. And I don't care how fancy schmancy attractive you make the inside of your vehicle. Living out of a vehicle is not the same as living out of a house. Like water limitations. You can get a giant water tank, but there's bad and good to having a giant water tank. You can get a small water tank, but there's bad and good to having a small water tank. How much power do you really need to get by? How many things do you have to operate that need power? What is your income, on the road? Who knows? When I actually retire, if I'm ever able in my life to put away enough money to retire, maybe, and I'm still alive, I'm in such a weird space compared to other people. If I'm ever at the point where I have money and I'm not working, traveling in a camper van is something I would love to do, but I would love to do it knowing there's a place to come home to. And that's sort of what I'm being drawn to. And it's okay for your life to change. It's okay for your focus to change. And that's sort of where I am. I don't know if this video really got to the point of what I was saying. There's a lot of reasons. I personally am ready to have a place I call home. I personally feel like I found a place that feels like home. And for my pets, I think my pets would be better off with some sort of stability in a home. At least Felix. Mickey doesn't care. If I'm there, Mickey's cool. But Felix he's a different guy. And it's okay for him to be a different guy. And I've committed to him as a pet parent. So, and I kind of want a dog. And I can definitely not have 2 cats and a dog in the situation I am in now. If I didn't have the cats and I wanted a dog, maybe it would work. But I kind of do want a dog. I'm always stealing my friends' dogs, I have a friend out here named Ashley, and she has this beautiful, big, poodle cane corso mix, but he mostly looks like a big black poodle, and I love him, and his name is Larry, and he gives me kisses every time I see him. But a dog is something I really, really would like. And I would love the space to have the dog, introduce the dogs to the cats, and have, the time, the space, and the stillness to have that whole situation work without stress. So these are things I want in the future. I have started another little channel because I do still like editing. I still like creating. That literally has nothing to do with van life. It has nothing to do with me personally. It's probably going to be a faceless channel, i.e. a channel where nobody sees my face. And I'm probably not going to share it because I feel like it should be naturally found. And it's just a a little thing for me. And if it never gets big, and if it never makes money, and if I'm never a quote unquote YouTuber or influencer from it, that's okay. Cause I kind of missed the space where this was just a fun hobby. That being said, I'm grateful for all the people who found my channel, who have expressed, positive energy to me, who have told me I've helped them in some way, whether it was for leisure van life or need van life. Ooh, that's a good distinction, leisure versus need. Like, I appreciate so much the experience I have had up to this point. But I have to be honest with myself about what I'm looking for going forward.